When I turned 20, my sister drugged me. While I was slipping into unconsciousness, everything in the room became chaotic. Through the haze, I vaguely heard her excited muttering. This time, the opportunity belongs to me. I'm the one who saved the crown prince of the capital. I'm the one who deserves a life of wealth and luxury. Outwardly, I acted panicked, but deep down I almost laughed. It seemed my dear sister had been reborn. If that was true, then in this life, I'd let her become the wife of the crown prince. Or, more accurately, the living bank that keeps the Reynolds family alive. At my birthday party, I drank the glass of wine my sister handed me and fainted. Through the fog of my half-conscious mind, I heard her muttering again, filled with excitement and regret for the opportunities she had lost in her previous life. This time, I'm the one who saved the crown prince of the capital. I'm the one who deserves the life of luxury. That was when I realized my sister had been reborn, too. Panic surged through me as I grabbed the hem of her dress, trying to tell her that the life she longed for wasn't one of luxury, but a blazing pit of fire. Yet she only glanced at me with disdain. A month before that, I had already been reborn. The pain of being burned alive hadn't faded, but when I opened my eyes, I found myself lying on the large bed at home. At that moment, I hadn't met the crown prince yet. My tragic fate hadn't begun. I rushed to the living room. Mom was busy in the kitchen. "Oh, sweetheart, you're up early today. Come have breakfast." Seeing her, tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I ran over and hunted her tightly, terrified that this was just another dream from my past life. In my previous life, because the Reynolds family wanted me to save their heir, they kidnapped Mom to threaten me. I lost all my pride, flattering them like a desperate dog, begging only for my mother's safety. But she still died. They claimed it was a sudden fire at the nursing home, too fast for anyone to save her. But why her? And why only her? I knew they had done it. By then, my body had become so frail that even walking was difficult. I no longer had the strength to think, let alone take revenge. As I was dying, I overheard the Reynolds brothers talking. "She's worthless now. Kill her already. Don't drag it out. She's dying anyway. Do it quick before the night grows long and dreams grow dangerous. Don't make it like her mother." Got it. Tonight, her mother was such a nuisance, almost found this place. That whole family's trouble. Her sister came looking for us 2 days ago. I'll lure her here tonight and take care of them both. Ha 241. Stop talking and get it done. This place stinks already. Having been given a new life and seeing Mom again, my whole body trembled. This time, I swore to stay far away from the Reynolds family and protect my loved ones. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Mom gently rubbed my back, comforting me. I tried to hold back my tears, forcing down the emotions, welling up inside. "It's okay, Mom. I just had a nightmare," I whispered, resting my head on her shoulder. "A nightmare?" She smiled softly and stroked my hair, just like she used to when I was little. "When you rub your head, the fear goes away. Rub your ear, and it rests for a while. It's just a bad dream, honey. Everyone has them sometimes." My sister, Emily, walked in. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. Over time again, Mom asked. Emily worked at a social media company, and over time was nothing new. The account she managed had millions of followers. That was why in my past life, when she got involved with the Reynolds brothers, she was terrified of being dragged down by me, and her bright, promising life ended far too soon. Emily rolled her eyes as I approached her. "Move," she snapped impatiently, glaring at me as if I were nothing but trouble. Emily grabbed a steamed bun and quickly walked out the door. Now lying on the bed, I stared at her face, tense and unpleasant, and felt utterly confused. In both my past life and this one, my sister had always been good to me. We were close. At school, she protected me. At home, she kept me company. Whenever I was in trouble, she was the one who helped. She would give me her nice things when she no longer needed them. I had never once seen her show dissatisfaction. Though she sometimes had a sharp tongue, I believed that was just her way of showing love. Good thing I came back in time. I heard her murmur to herself. If I had been a day late, it would have been too late anyway. "You were going to die soon, no matter what. Let me bear the burden of that luxurious life for you. Guess idiots really do have their own kind of luck. Did you seriously think you could climb up the Reynolds family tree? Don't tell me you thought I actually liked you. You're the person I hate most in the world." Her words hit me like daggers. Ever since we were little, I provoked our classmates to bully you and make you an outcast. The scar on your arm. I burned you myself. I was the one who tricked you into going up the mountain and covered all the warning signs. I wanted you gone. Too bad you never knew a thing. It was so boring. You'll always only deserve my leftovers. You don't deserve a good life. Even Mom deserved to die. She spent more time with me, yet she always favored you. After you got rich, you didn't take care of her. You threw her into a nursing home, and still, she thought about you every day. In this life, both of you better stay far away from me. Don't you dare try to take anything that belongs to me. Emily kicked me hard, then strutted out the door as if nothing had happened. In my previous life, I met Ethan Reynolds, the crown prince of the capital, on my 20th birthday. It was in a narrow alley, a few dozen yards from the back entrance of a bar. He had been hit by a car and was lying in a pool of blood. I called an ambulance and stayed by his bedside while he was in a coma. When he woke up, he said he wanted to repay me and asked me out several times. Gradually, I fell in love with him. He told me he had a former wife who had divorced him because she was too focused on her career. I believed him. Back then, I didn't notice the fleeting cruelty that crossed his eyes. On our wedding day, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive to have such a talented, loving husband. But I never imagined that he had only used me. Much later, I discovered the truth. The driver who hit him that night was his ex-wife's brother. His ex-wife had died because of him that the police couldn't find evidence. Her brother, dying from a terminal illness, wanted to avenge her before his death and rammed his car into Ethan. If not for my misguided compassion, Ethan would have died that night. After marrying him, I was beaten, humiliated, drained of blood, and even had my kidney taken. I regretted my foolish kindness countless times. But to my sister, it was heaven's blessing, something to envy. After 2 lifetimes, this was the first time I'd ever heard Emily's true feelings. So all along, this was what she really thought of me and Mom. She had never liked either of us. Maybe after living too long with the Reynolds family, I'd caught a bit of their twisted nature myself. Because in that moment, I felt strangely calm, even a little exhilarated. My dear sister, if you desire this so-called blessing, I'll gladly let you have it. In this life, I'll let you become the crown prince's wife, or more precisely, the living blood bank of the Reynolds family. The next morning, I woke up in my big bed at home. I panicked and ran through the house looking for Mom. She came out of her room wearing her reading glasses, giving me a puzzled look. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "Another nightmare." I hesitated, then nodded. "Emily, you and I should go to the temple," she said gently. "It's not good to keep having bad dreams." "There's no need, Mom," I replied softly. "Lately, I've been reading too many horror novels." "Once you finish reading it, you'll be fine," I said, trying to come up with an excuse to cover things up. "If it scares you so much, then stop reading it," Mom suggested gently. "Or better yet, read it early in the morning. Come to my room and we can read together. Then it won't be so scary." "It's okay, Mom. I'm almost done anyway," I replied, hugging her arm tightly. "How did you get home last night?" she asked. "You picked me up, didn't you?" "Of course I did. You don't even know how much you drank. You called me saying you couldn't move. Scared me half to death. You were out cold like a baby pig. If I hadn't seen you breathing, I would have thought you were gone. You must have been exhausted," I said, with a faint smile, massaging her hands to hide the disgust boiling inside me. Glancing at the clock on the wall, a memory struck me. Around this time in my previous life, I had been on my way home to borrow money from Mom. Ethan Reynolds was lying in the hospital, unconscious, without a phone, ID, or money. His medical bills were all paid by my family. Judging by the time now, Emily should be on her way home soon. The thought made me uneasy. "Mom, can we have sweet and sour ribs for lunch? Would you go buy some pork ribs for me?" "You little rascal," always so sudden, she laughed. "All right, I'll go." She took off her reading glasses and tossed them on the bed. "Put your slippers on, okay? Don't walk around barefoot, you'll catch a cold." About 10 minutes after Mom left the house, Emily rushed in. "Mom," she called out, frantically looking around. "Where's Mom?" I stepped out of my room, leaning casually against the doorframe. Our eyes met. "Mom went out." "What do you need her for?" "Why do I need to tell you?" She snapped, glaring at me, before pulling out her phone to call Mom. But the market was close by, and Mom hadn't taken her phone with her, just like she hadn't taken her glasses. The ringtone came from Mom's room. Emily pushed the door open, finding the room empty. On the table was a pair of jeans, mine and Mom's phone beside them. A few days ago, the side of that pair of jeans had torn when I got off the bus, and Mom had been mending it for me. Emily picked them up, glanced at the rip, and scoffed before tossing them aside. Seriously, these torn-up jeans are worth fixing. In my past life, I'd thought the same thing. The jeans had cost barely a few dollars, yet Mom had spent half a day sewing them. Back then, I thought it was a waste of time. Why bother patching up something so cheap instead of enjoying life? But now I understood. That was Mom's life. She loved sewing. The TV, the fridge, the washing machine, the chairs, even the nightstand, all had handmade covers she'd sewn herself. She truly loved creating things. "What do you want, Emily?" I asked calmly. She narrowed her eyes. "You've grown bold, huh? Talking to your sister like that. Since the day you drugged me, Emily, you stopped being my sister," I said coldly. Her eyes widened in surprise. "So you found out?" I wasn't sure if, in my past life, I had left her with the impression that I was a fool, or if she had simply always thought of me as one. My college entrance score had been 100 points higher than hers. How could I possibly be stupid? Even a fool can still hear. And last night, she had muttered everything right in front of me. No matter how dumb she thought I was, anyone would have understood. Well, so you figured it out," she said mockingly. "Doesn't matter. Soon enough, we won't even be on the same level anymore." Her eyes swept over me with disdain as she sat down on Mom's bed. The sound of a faint crack followed. Mom's glasses were crushed beneath her. Those glasses had been a gift from me. Now they were broken under Emily's careless weight. "I'll wait here for Mom to come back," she said arrogantly. "Even if she comes home, she won't give you any money," I interrupted. You came back too," she asked, briefly startled. "So what if you did? I'm the one who saved the Reynolds family's heir now. Then you shouldn't be using our family's money," I replied evenly. "Otherwise, your noble title as their savior won't stay very clean." "If I tell Ethan Reynolds the truth," I said softly, "do you really think he'll still want to marry you?" Emily froze. I knew her well enough to see through her fears. The only reason she could surpass me in that previous life was because she carried the title of savior, the woman who supposedly saved the crown prince of the Reynolds family. In everything else, looks, figure, intelligence, and her understanding of their world, she could never compare to me. She hesitated, so I pressed further. "If the Reynolds heir finds out that you actually had money, yet used our family's savings to save him, do you think he'll still be grateful? You spent a little bit of savings in exchange for the Reynolds family's empire. Don't you think that's a bargain?" Her eyes darted around nervously, still filled with suspicion. "You're being awfully kind, helping me like this," she said, her tone sharp with distrust. "You're my sister," I replied calmly. "If things go well for you, they'll go well for me and Mom too." I glanced at the clock. Mom had been gone for half an hour. The market was only about a mile away. She'd probably be back any minute now. And besides, I added quickly, "You died because of me in the last life. I owe you one. After this, me paying you back." Emily's eyes flashed with hatred. "You haven't paid me back yet," she hissed, her voice dripping within him. A few minutes before Mom returned, she finally left. Later, as I ate the sweet and sour ribs Mom had made, the warm flavor only deepened the heaviness in my chest. I had thought that by being reborn, I could avoid the Reynolds family entirely and live a quiet, peaceful life. But now that Emily had entangled herself with them, there was no guarantee they wouldn't use my family as hostages again, just like before. I silently vowed that I would never let Mom suffer that fate again. So when Mom turned to me with a bright smile and said, "Your sister stopped by earlier. She said her company's organizing a trip, and she'll be away for a while." I forced myself to smile too. "Really? That's good for her," I said. Emily also said the company allows employees to bring a family member. She asked if I wanted to go. Mom laughed and shook her head. "No way, I don't know anyone there. It wouldn't be fun." "Then you should go, honey," she added. "I can't, Mom. Classes start again in a few days, and I need to go back to school." I replied, in my previous life, not finishing college had been one of my deepest regrets. I had only half a year left until graduation, and this time I wanted to make it count. Still, deep down, I longed to leave, to go abroad, far away from the Reynolds family, to a place with mountains and oceans between us. But I couldn't. First, I didn't have enough money saved to support both Mom and me overseas. And second, if we both disappeared, Ethan would hunt us down. With the Reynolds family's power and influence, finding two ordinary women in another country wouldn't be difficult. I knew how relentless they were. They always found a way. Mom looked like she wanted to say something, but I cut her off quickly. "It's settled then. I'll call my friend Claire now. Maybe you can go visit her for a while. Claire Parker was my best friend, my soulmate since middle school. We'd been inseparable all the way through high school and would have gone to the same college if she hadn't decided to study abroad. She was now in Canada, and her parents were respected figures in the capital. Having Mom stay with her would be far safer. In my previous life, Claire had been deceived by a terrible man, cheated out of both love and money, and eventually killed by him after their breakup. The two of us had met equally tragic ends. I died in flames, and she died alone in a foreign country. Neither of us had a happy ending. If Mom went to her this time, maybe things could change. Maybe Claire's fate could be rewritten too. When I called her, she sighed. So you finally see it now, huh? Your sister never liked you. Claire's voice was full of concern. I forced a small laugh. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I teased, pretending to be upset. How could I not? I hinted at it so many times, but you never caught on. What was I supposed to do? Say something bad about your sister outright? That make me sound awful. I chuckled bitterly. God, how could I have been so stupid? You're not stupid, she said softly. You're just too slow sometimes, Claire teased. Did you know the class president used to like you? What? No way. He never said anything to me. I knew it, Claire laughed. Everyone in class said you were teasing him on purpose, that you were some kind of flirt. I argued with them every single day. So, all those times you argued with them back then. It was for me, I asked, touched. Of course it was. You're my best friend, she said, her tone softening. Warmth spread through my chest. Even if the love I'd once given to Emily had been misplaced, at least, I still had someone like Claire, someone who had always stood by me without hesitation. But as that thought surfaced, my heart ached again. In my past life, a good girl like her had been forced to live in constant fear, stalked and threatened in a foreign country. Before she died, she had called me. But I hadn't picked up. I hadn't known until much later, and the guilt had eaten at me for years. Back then she must have been terrified, calling me as a last desperate hope, and I had let her down. Ah, don't get all sentimental on me, she said, clearing her throat. I'm nice to you because you're nice to me. Besides, I didn't even win those arguments anyway. Now stop saying such cheesy things. Just relax and send your mom here. I promise I'll take good care of her. Thank you, Claire. Really? Hey, I added, don't go to bars so often, okay? If my mom sees that, she'll lecture you to death. Got it, she laughed. But don't pretend the real reason you're sending your mom here isn't so she can keep an eye on me. Exactly, I said, playing along. I just want someone trustworthy by your side. Fine, fine, she said with a grin in her voice. From now on, I'll let no one else near me. You'll be the only one I'm loyal to. Ha ha, in that case, I'll make sure my royal heart belongs to you alone. I joked. A few hours later, Mom's flight had just taken off when my phone rang. It was Emily. Lily, she said, her voice unnaturally soft, almost syrupy. Why aren't you in Mom home? No one with a fishbone stuck in their throat could have sounded that falsely sweet. What's going on? I asked coldly. I'm on a date, she said, deliberately lowering her tone. My boyfriend wants to meet the family. We just got back to town. When will you two be home? For a moment I froze. In my past life, nothing like this had happened. At this point in time, Ethan Reynolds had still been in the hospital. He and Emily were only acquaintances back then. He hadn't even mentioned repaying his so-called debt of life yet. It seemed this time, Emily was much more impatient. Mom and I are out shopping, I replied smoothly. I'm meeting some friends later to see a movie, so I probably won't be home until tonight. What about Mom, she pressed. She was home when I left this morning, I said calmly. But she probably went out to visit friends by now. I heard Mrs. Tran's daughter just gave birth. Mom might have gone to the hospital to see her. I couldn't let Emily or Ethan know that Mom had already gone abroad, not until she settled down safely with Claire. The movie will still be there tomorrow. You should come home and meet your brother-in-law, Emily said pointedly, dragging out the last two words. I don't have the house key, I lied quickly. And I already made plans. I can't cancel now. Then I'll come pick you up after you're done. You can head home with me, she offered sweetly. Absolutely not. Ethan Reynolds wasn't the kind of man you could meet casually. Just thinking of his face made me uneasy. If he'd shown up at my house now, it was for a reason. And whatever that reason was, it wouldn't be good. All right then, Emily said when I didn't respond, we'll wait for Mom a bit longer. If she went to the hospital, she won't be back soon anyway. Mrs. Trans will definitely make her stay for lunch. Maybe I'll call her again. Sure, go ahead, I said coolly. I already did. She didn't pick up. That's why I called you. She replied in a suddenly sharp tone. Then she sighed dramatically. Fine, seems like strangers are more important than her own daughter. She hung up before I could reply. I didn't know if Ethan and Emily were still at the house, and I didn't dare to go back. But I couldn't stay in a hotel either. The Reynolds family had influence everywhere, and it wouldn't take long for them to find me. I didn't yet know what Ethan was planning, but I wasn't about to take any risks. Just then, I spotted a KFC nearby. I walked in, ordered a meal, and found a quiet corner to sit. As I picked up my food, I began piecing together everything I knew so far. Ethan Reynolds was gay. He'd had a boyfriend since childhood, and they were deeply attached. The only reason he was in such a rush to get married was because his family was pressuring him. If he wanted to become the heir, he needed a child. At the same time, his boyfriend's kidney was failing, and he desperately needed a transplant. Right after Ethan woke up from his accident, he dragged me to the hospital for a physical exam. The results showed that I was in excellent health, and that my kidney was a perfect match for his boyfriend. That's when he decided to pursue me. After we got married, they kidnapped my mother to force me to donate my kidney. I tried to escape and went to the police, but it was useless. I had no proof. They'd learned from past mistakes. This time, they hired a secret team of doctors to perform the operation illegally. After the surgery, they locked me in a hospital lab, completely cut off from the outside world. Even food and water were limited. Every few days, Ethan would come to see me, each time more brutal than the last. Later, when his boyfriend recovered, the two of them came together. They didn't just humiliate and beat me. They filmed disgusting videos of it, laughing as they did. The news of Claire's death came from a nurse who sometimes brought me food. The Parker family had always been respected in the capital, but when they learned their beloved daughter had died so horribly, they fell apart. As for my mother's death, Ethan told me himself. By that point, I'd been trapped in the lab for so long I couldn't tell day from night. When they came to torment me, I no longer reacted. Maybe they found it boring, because a few days before my death, Ethan casually told me about Mom's passing. Even the Reynolds family's eldest son eventually joined in their games. In the end, I had no strength left. My blood and organs were harvested and sold piece by piece. I've gone over everything from beginning to end. Even with the advantage of being reborn, what could an ordinary woman like me do against a giant like the Reynolds family? I was powerless. How could I possibly take revenge? Right now, nothing had happened yet. I had no evidence. Going to the police would be meaningless. Among everyone I knew, the only people who might have the power to stand against the Reynolds family were Claire's parents. But even they were distant to me, and against a family like the Reynolds, they were insignificant. So what could I do? Bennett hit me. There was someone else. Someone who could help me. Richard Lynn. In my previous life, the Lynn family's company was destroyed. Their employees were bribed, competitors attacked, partners abandoned them, and eventually Richard Lynn himself was kidnapped. That led to the company's bankruptcy and the family's collapse. But that was still far in the future. At this point in time, the Lynn family was still powerful, strong enough to stand against the Reynolds. When their company went under in my past life, I hadn't yet been imprisoned in the lab. I'd seen a lot of confidential documents in Ethan's study, and among them were things that could help the Lynns and in turn help me. After several attempts, I finally managed to meet Richard Lynn. He was over 60, but still sharp and commanding. At first, he barely looked at me. His expression cold, almost disdainful. But when I began pointing out the problems he was facing, the ones no outsider should have known, he sat up straight and listened intently. That's when I knew I'd played the right move. After a long silence, he asked, "You said quite a lot. So what exactly do you want?" Richard Lynn carried the air of someone born to lead, and under his gaze, I felt as though he could see through every thought in my head. "I don't want anything," I said quietly, meeting his eyes with sincerity. "I just want to see the Reynolds family fall and Ethan Reynolds dead. I believe that aligns with your own goals, doesn't it?" He gave a dry laugh. "A rivalry is just business competition. There's no need to go as far as life and death." "Maybe you think that," I said calmly, "but Ethan doesn't. He's already planning to have you kidnapped. If nothing changes, it'll happen within the next few days. When you go out, make sure you bring extra security." "Really now?" he murmured, the hint of a smirk fading from his face. "What's your relationship with Ethan Reynolds?" Richard Lynn asked, his tone calm but sharp. "How do you know all of this?" "My sister is his girlfriend," I answered steadily. "They are about to get married. Ethan Reynolds is not a good man. I just don't want my sister to get hurt." "How do I know you're not the one planning to kidnap me instead of him?" The fact that he asked that told me he was already halfway convinced. I smiled faintly. "Mr. Lynn, someone like me couldn't even get close to you without the help of Mr. Chu. How could I possibly have the resources to kidnap you?" He stared at me silently, his eyes dark and unreadable. When I stood to take my leave, his voice suddenly cut through the air. "Be my woman," he said. I froze, whipping my head toward him. His expression didn't change. It was calm, almost too calm. I couldn't tell if he was joking or dead serious. "I'm done for," I thought bitterly. The last thing I wanted was for my potential ally to be a man who only saw me as a body to possess. "It's not possible," I said flatly. My voice was cold, but inside I felt like the sky had gone pitch black. "I'll give you $300,000 a month. Not even $3 million, I said quietly, would make me say yes. A flicker of disappointment passed through me. I hoped that maybe, as a seasoned businessman, he was testing me, that this was some kind of power play. But his next words made it clear that wasn't the case. "I've already done you a huge favor," he said suddenly, his gaze turning razor sharp. My fingers tightened around the small knife hidden in my jacket pocket, while my other hand hovered over my phone, ready to call the police. "This should be a mutually beneficial partnership," I said evenly, refusing to show fear. There was a long, tense silence before Richard Lynn chuckled softly. "You're quite cautious, aren't you?" he said, waving a dismissive hand. "All right, you've made your point. Thank you for the warning. I'll have my son reach out to you later." I nodded slightly, keeping my guard up until his assistant escorted me out of the building. Walking along the busy avenue, surrounded by the hum of traffic, I finally felt safe again. The hand gripping my knife was stiff and trembling. It took me a while before I could even relax my fingers. I'd already died once. I wasn't going to let it happen again. In that moment, I made up my mind. Once I was done with the Reynolds family, I would take Mom and disappear. When I unlocked the door to my house, I froze. 2 pairs of shoes sat by the entryway, a pair of high heels and a pair of men's leather shoes, both expensive. Ethan Reynolds was here. I knew it the second I saw those shoes. The men's pair was handcrafted, custom-made. The same kind I'd seen at Ethan's place in my past life. They weren't sold anywhere. They were made by a private artisan. Emily stepped out of the kitchen, wiping her hands. "Lily, you're back. Come eat, I cooked tonight." Behind her, a familiar silhouette appeared. The keys slipped from my trembling hand, clattering loudly against the floor. It was Ethan Reynolds. But something was wrong. The man standing there wasn't the Ethan from this timeline. It was the Ethan from years later, from right before my death, and one who had seized half of the Reynolds empire, powerful beyond anyone's reach. No wonder things were different this time. No wonder he'd shown up here. He had been reborn too. "What's with that clumsy face of yours?" Emily turned to glare at me, but as soon as she faced Ethan again, her expression softened into a sweet smile. "This is my boyfriend," she said brightly. "Say hi to your brother-in-law." Ethan's eyes locked onto mine. The weight of his stare made every hair on my body stand on end. I couldn't bring myself to speak. Even after being reborn, I hadn't become any braver. I was still the same coward, the same fool. Under his chilling gaze, I instinctively wanted to back away. Could I really take revenge on this man? Before I could think further, Ethan's lips curved into a cold, knowing smile. His voice was deep and low, like a winter wind brushing against my skin. "We're not married yet. No need for her to call me brother-in-law," he said lazily. "Don't just stand there. Sit." He pulled out the chair next to Emily and sat down, motioning toward the table. "You came back at the perfect time," Emily said, pretending everything was normal. "Dinner's ready." I carefully avoided him and sat on the opposite side of the table. "Your little sister seems afraid of me," Ethan said, staring straight at me, his expression growing stranger by the second. There was something in his eyes. Sharp knowing, almost too knowing. He had noticed something. Logic screamed at me to stay calm, to hide every trace of what I was truly thinking. I couldn't let Ethan Reynolds find out that I had been reborn too. But emotionally, it was hard to control the fear he triggered in me. I took a deep breath, forced myself to look up and smiled politely. "I'm just not good with strangers," I said lightly. I've always been an introvert. If I can stay home, I stay home. If I don't have to talk, I won't. Ethan already knew that about me. Haha, what a cute little sister, he said mockingly. I ignored him, picking up my phone and pretending to scroll through it, though my mind was racing for a way out. Ethan was intelligent. Cruel intelligent. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to torment me so methodically in my previous life. Why had he been so obsessed with me back then? There were plenty of people with compatible kidneys, most of the women who could have carried his child. Why me? Especially when Emily and I shared the same blood type and looked almost identical. Why did it have to be me? Did you come to propose to my sister? I asked, feigning innocence. That's right, Ethan said smoothly, nodding. Would you give me your blessing to marry her? His gaze stayed fixed on me, calculated, vile, nauseating. Then why'd you come empty-handed? I looked around, pretending to search for a ring box. When my eyes met Emily's, I caught the flash of malice on her face. There was even a red mark on her arm. My pulse quickened. They weren't even married yet, and Ethan was already marking her. After being reborn, he'd become even more depraved. Emily wrapped her arm around his shoulders, her voice soft and flirtatious. Ethan, why are you staring at my sister so much? Is she prettier than me? Ethan smirked, his hand sliding behind her to grab her shamelessly. Of course not, sweetheart. You're the most beautiful. The atmosphere thickened into something filthy. For a second, I wondered if I'd accidentally walked into the wrong kind of scene. Knowing them, they might actually do something obscene right there in front of me. In my last life, I'd only ever known fear when I saw him. And even now, I couldn't tell what he was thinking. But one thing was certain. He was insane. Because the next moment, he glanced at me, his eyes gleaming with something twisted, and bit Emily's waist hard. Emily let out a playful shriek, then kissed him, shaking her hips as she sauntered off toward the kitchen. The disgust churning inside me was stronger than the fear now. Lily, you came back too, Ethan said casually. Back? His tone was deliberate. He wasn't just making conversation. This is my home, I replied, forcing my voice to sound calm. Of course I came back. Lily, he said, smirking. I'm not an idiot. He reached into his pocket and pulled something out, a leather collar. My entire body went cold, as if plunged into ice. I recognized it instantly. It was the same collar he'd forced on me after they kidnapped my mother in my past life. Back then, desperate to keep her alive, I had done everything, begged for her life. Seeing that collar again made the humiliation of those days crash over me like a wave. I clenched my fists, forcing my expression to stay calm. Do you raise pets now? I asked, pretending to sound casual. That's right, he said, standing slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. There was something predatory in the way he looked at me, like a leech clinging to bone. But one of them ran away and left another dog pretending to take its place. She was my favorite. How could she possibly think of escaping? By the time he finished speaking, he was right in front of me. His shadow loomed over mine. I panicked and tried to stand, but my knee hit the table, making it wobble dangerously. He grabbed my arm, his grip was iron, and slowly began to tighten it. I struggled, twisting and pulling with all my strength, but it was useless. Ethan, dinner's ready. Emily's voice called sweetly from the kitchen. He froze for a single second, then released me and walked away as if nothing had happened. At that moment, Emily's voice sounded like it came from heaven itself. I didn't know what kind of hold she had over him, but I knew it wouldn't last. Ethan Reynolds couldn't be controlled forever. I ran to my room, locked the door, and with shaking hands typed a message to Richard Lynn. Move fast, Ethan's lost his mind. A few minutes later, my phone rang. Hello, I whispered, keeping my voice low. Hello, this is Ryan Lynn, a man said on the other end. The name struck something in my memory. Ryan Lynn, my high school class president, had the same name, but now wasn't the time to reminisce. You're Mr. Richard Lynn's son, I asked quietly. Yes, he confirmed. My father asked me to tell you, we found the person you mentioned. He really did steal our company's trade secrets. Relief flooded through me. That meant the first step had succeeded. I'd gained the Lynn family's trust. Is everything all right on your end? Ryan asked. There are guests at my house, I said vaguely, careful not to speak Ethan's name in case he was listening. Ethan Reynolds is at your place. Ryan's tone sharpened. Yes. Can you do something? I'll act fast, he said. I could already hear faint footsteps outside my door. Make it soon, I urged under my breath. The deadline's close. I understand. You'll hear back in 2 days at most. Stay cautious. There was a knock at my door. Sharp, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. My heart froze. Who is it? I called, forcing my voice steady. Lily. Ethan's low, chilling voice seeped through the wood. Come eat. It was the same voice that had once whispered like a demon in my nightmares. Everything went black. When I came to, I was tied up in an abandoned warehouse near my neighborhood. The air smelled of dust and rust. Outside, I could hear faint footsteps. They were searching for me, but not to rescue me. I tried to move, but my body was weak. Gritting my teeth, I rolled over and banged my head against the heavy iron door, desperate to make noise to be found. But no one stopped. No one even turned their head. Then I heard it, the sound of leather shoes striking concrete. I'd heard that sound thousands of times before in my past life. Even without seeing him, I knew. Ethan Reynolds. No one else could make my blood freeze like that. I hadn't offended anyone else this time. Only him. In my previous life, he'd captured me once. Now it had happened again. I'd heard rumors that the Reynolds family had already fallen, that the entire clan had been arrested. I'd let myself relax, thinking it was over, but I should have known better. Ethan Reynolds wasn't the type to go down easily. About a week after he'd last left my house, Mom had gone to Canada with Claire. She never called, saying she wanted to come back. Because she was there, the man who killed Claire in my past life never found her this time. Under the Lynn family's relentless pressure, the Reynolds empire had begun to crumble. Their eldest son, the heir, was the first to be arrested on charges of selling national secrets, tax evasion, and corporate espionage. And like a snowball rolling downhill, their crimes kept piling up. Within 3 days, 10 major charges had been linked to the Reynolds family. Their massive corporation couldn't withstand the blow and started collapsing fast. A few days later, I passed along more information to the Lens, details about the Reynolds' hidden assets. Soon after those accounts were exposed, their secret property seized. That's when I made my biggest mistake. I let my guard down. I went out to take out the trash without paying attention. I hadn't even reached the dumpster when something heavy struck my head, and everything went dark. When I woke up, I was here. As for how I knew it was an abandoned warehouse near my home, it was written right on the wall, storage unit. And outside, I could still hear the loudspeaker from the small supermarket nearby, blaring a promotion. Lily, his voice crawled through the air like a serpent. Ethan walked up to me. He walked a fistful of my hair and forced my head up until I met his eyes. He's still planning to run, he said softly, his voice calling but terrifying. He looked awful, his once flawless suit wrinkled and dirty. The man who'd always prided himself on perfection now looked like a predator cornered. He smiled, a grotesque curve of his lips. You and Richard Lynn, working together, huh? His hands slid from my hair to my temple, his fingers tracing down the side of my face, slow and invasive. Did he treat you well? He whispered. Better than I did. Every word dripped with venom. He was like a deranged animal, unable to say 3 sentences without turning them into something obscene. Why did you betray me, Lily? He hissed. I treated you so well. He yanked my hair again, so hard it felt like my scalp was tearing. Tears spilled silently down my cheeks. He laughed harder when he saw me crying. His tongue slid across my cheek, catching a tear that had just fallen. You missed me too, didn't you? He whispered. When I didn't respond, he grabbed my head and slammed it against the concrete wall with a sickening thud. The world spun, my vision blurred. Warm blood trickled down my face, stinging my eyes. Where's your boyfriend? I asked weakly. Him. Ethan smirked. Oh, he's dead. He leaned close to my ear, his breath cold. Want to know how he died? I cut him into pieces. Half of him I fed to the dogs. The other half I threw into the river. You want to know why I killed him instead of you, right? He went on softly. Because he wanted your heart. And you, his voice darkened. You're my pet. Letting him play with one of your kidneys was fine. But your heart? No. You're the dog I loved most. How could I let anyone else have that? He wasn't just insane anymore. The word madness wasn't enough to describe him. He was deranged, monstrously so. You must be angry, he said with a cruel smile. Angry that I burned you alive in the last life. But you're too clever, Lily. Don't think I didn't notice. You already found a way to escape. If I didn't kill you, it would have been me lying dead instead. Emily still thinks you're just a fool. He continued, laughing softly. But she's the real idiot. You deliberately let her write to me, didn't you? You've never even liked alcohol, have you? I froze. In the last life before you died, she strangled you, he said, his tone almost conversational. She forced you to give her money. Even your mother's death, she helped make that happen. So of course, you want revenge this time. You've always been the type who never forgets a grudge. Everyone who wronged you has to pay. His grin widened. I also found out the man who killed your friend, Claire, died in bed with a woman. Cause of death, overexertion. One day before that, his bank account received a large sum of money. Guess who sent it? My blood ran cold. Ryan Lynn likes you, he said matter-of-factly. I told you that in our last life. So when you came back, of course you thought about using him. But you forgot. Back at the hospital, he was the one who handed you back to me. If I'm not mistaken, you left him a little time bomb, didn't you? When are you planning to set it off, after I die, or after you escape? He crouched closer, tilting his head, his tone mocking. And what about me? How do you plan to take your revenge on me, Lily? Don't tell me you're just using the Lynn family to bankrupt me. You know, I never cared about the Reynolds family fortune. Ethan was terrifyingly perceptive. For a split second, fear flickered in my eyes. He saw it. He smirked. You're scared because I'm right, aren't you? You're overthinking, I said quietly, forcing a smile. I'm not that smart. He chuckled darkly. But that's smart. No. You're even smarter than I thought. You know everything about me. The only thing you don't know. He leaned in, his voice almost a growl, is that I'm a complete psychopath. He straightened up. If you weren't so smart, I wouldn't want to marry you. Pets don't need marriage. I stared at him and asked calmly, and how can you be so sure I'll take revenge on you? He grinned. Because you're clever. The cleverest woman I've ever met. I smiled faintly, and you're an idiot. You're about to die, and don't even know it. My smile was bright, defiant, laced with challenge. Oh, really? His voice dropped to a whisper. Then let's die together. He grabbed my head again and slammed it into the wall. But this time, my hand moved first. With a swift flick of my wrist, the small dagger hidden in my palm shot open. It had been disguised as a bracelet, transforming only when pressed at a specific point. I drove it straight into Ethan's temple. The ropes binding my hands had been cut long ago. I had been waiting for this moment, rehearsing it over and over ever since I returned to this life. For this day, I had prepared everything. I even used Emily to keep Ethan's body weak. She had been sleeping with him constantly, dragging his health down bit by bit. Her ex-boyfriend, in my past life, had been infected with a contagious disease. I had discovered it early and warned him away, saving her then. But in this life, I hadn't intervened. Emily hadn't escaped infection, and neither had Ethan. Even if I failed today, he wouldn't live long. I wasn't powerful enough to crush him directly, but even an ant can bite one cornered. I would use every weapon I had, every weakness I could find to protect what mattered. I wasn't wrong for that. I stumbled out of the warehouse, half blind from pain, shouting for help as I ran. Eventually, someone saw me. A few strangers gathered around, some called the police, others an ambulance. I was saved. My vision blurred. My legs gave out beneath me. As I collapsed, I caught a glimpse of the sky, endlessly blue, sunlight spilling across my face. For the first time, I truly felt it. I had survived long enough to see a new dawn.